Right, I am doing this video live again. This time I am specifically going to address certain aspects. As you can see in the title, I am going to look at basket weave, but that's not the primary purpose. I really want to look specifically at the edges of basket weave. So here we go. I'm just going to cover this area with basket weave. I have drawn the circle around, and I'm going to do the basket weave within that, and that is my outer edge. The straight line that I've got in the middle, that is to start the basket weave on. So I first want to get that out the way. I follow the Chan gear method of doing the basket weave. In other words, I do impressions on that center line that look like that. And I chose this specific basket weave because of its size. It is big. I don't want to waste time with covering the area with basket weave. So here we go. I've got a bit of a new and improved stand for my camera, for my phone. So I cannot fit another one in, and you can see there's not enough space. If I do another impression there, I'm going to go over the edge. So I'm going to leave that out for now and not do that. So what I do here is I'm going to go back. So the first row I do from left to right on that straight line, and now the second row I'm going to do from right to left. So the way that I do that is I mark the width of the stamp. There you can see what I do. I put the two stamps in there. Just a corner of the basket weave. Remember, that's what one impression of the basket weave looks like. Okay, so then here we go. Now all the rows I do from right to left, subsequent to this one, and this will self-straighten. And now what you can't see is that I am having to kind of peer around my phone here, but that's okay. It's kind of not too difficult. Okay, so I'm simply covering the area with the basket weave. And you'll see, as soon as I see that my next stamp is going to go over the edge, then I can't do that anymore. I fairly religiously keep to that line there as an absolute. I do not cross that line. Okay, so that one I can fit in, I hope. Yeah, I could. Okay. And that's the last one I can fit in on that space. I'll turn it around so that you can see better. So I've done them all up to a certain point, just so that I don't cross that borderline that I've created before. Now I'm just going to do the other half of this area as well. Let me quickly do that. So there's my spacing. And I apologize, and I also do not apologize for the fact that I am not a perfectionist. So if you follow the same method, you can probably get it much more accurate. But I'm here to show you how, not to show you how good I am. That I am not. I just believe in having fun. I was thankful for all the comments I got on the previous video I made. Most of them very relevant. Here and there, I have to apologize. Somebody commented on all the tools I have, and I did not show you all my tools there with the idea that I would brag about the tools I have. That was not the idea. I showed you all those tools, just it was in front of me, and I wanted to see what would happen if I pick up camera. I will tell you a story about that maybe a bit later on tonight or in this video. But for now, there we go. I've got the area of this covered with a basket weave. I cannot fit any more in. So what I do now is, and this is what you'll see a lot and why I'm specifically doing this video. You see a lot of people that now just would do the border. And that means that you notice marks like that showing up really prominently, and you can see this, the basket weave was ended and the border was just done around it. What I'm really interested in getting is a kind of an effect where that basket weave looks like it has been inlaid in the whole piece. So, okay, to achieve that, what I do, and now I'll have to work up slightly. I hope you can see what I'm doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt this basket weave tool to one side. If I were to hit that impression flat on, you'll see it's going to go over the line there. And I don't want that to happen. But if I tilt it really severely, it's not going to go over it, but it makes its impression there on the leather, and it looks much more faded out to one side. So it gets it takes a bit of getting used to tilting the tool in the right direction. I know I'm going slightly out of the picture here. I can still fit another impression in there, I see. But now let me show you this one. What I do here, if I do that, I go over the line. So instead, I tilt the tool fairly sharply and just make that impression. And you can see it is faded out. And I try as much as possible not to go over the edge, over that initial borderline that I drew. Sometimes it just takes a light tap. Okay, there we go. Let's get in the picture again. So here, just a tap. And now the basket weave comes much closer to the edge if I do that. So there was a suggestion in the previous video that I use a different camera, one that wouldn't lose focus, but I also need for this to work to be online. So a phone is the very first obvious choice. There we go. Okay, I think that illustrates the point that the basket weave has now crept up much closer to the edge, even though it's not full impressions, it is just faded out. But as far as possible, I've not gone over that edge. Now, there's two edges. The one that I really like is done with camouflage tool, which is this guy here. And I'll show you, it's a single impression of that tool. Looks like. that. Now what I do, I am going to use that tool to form the border around that basket weave. And the way that I do it, maybe I should pick a bigger one. Let me pick a bigger one. Slightly bigger. I won't go too big. Okay, here's a bit of a bigger one. There we go. That's what that one looks like. So it'll illustrate it well. So what I do with this, I put it down in such a way that the inner part, in other words, that inner circle there, is on the line, the original border line that I drew. That is where I place that part. If I can show it on this one, I place that part there on the border line. So this tool is going to obliterate that line. You won't be able to see that line, that border line that I drew before at all. And the rays of the tool, those rays going out, that's going to cover up the edge of the basket weave so that it will look like the basket weave was laid into the leather. So here we go. Let's see. I'm a bit close to my camera here. Let's do that. Okay, there we go. So there we go. And what I do now is I place the tip of the tool into the previous tip so that the two tips overlap. And then I swing this guy so that, again, that inner part is on the line. That's how I line up this tool now, going around the border. Doing that, you don't have to care about the shape of that border line. It can be round like this one I've just done freehand. It can be square. No hassle. So there we go. And I will hopefully glance at my phone every now and again. Hi, Melissa. To see the comments. And there you see that it makes for a really nice border. Okay, I'm going to take this border just so far. But that is a really nice effect. I like it. It's been an evergreen for me. I always or mostly do my basket weave borders like that. And you can see there how the basket weave disappears in under those rays there, and it looks eventually, if you were to color the basket weave a different color than the background here, you'll see that it actually looks like that piece of leather has been inlaid into the leather itself. Okay, so that's one of them. There is another way, and I know people don't always like the scallops. In other words, people don't always like this edge, scallop edge. So another way of doing it on this same piece of basket weave would be, I'll dig out here's a swivel knife. Now, so what I'm going to do now for a different effect is I'm going to cut that edge, or that borderline that I drew with the swivel knife. There it is. This is a fairly thick blade. It's a slightly angled one. It's a ceramic blade one. Okay. So there, got that edge, and this is a nice thick piece of leather. So I can be fairly aggressive with it. Okay, so there I've got a swivel line cut. And then what I'm going to do, just to make it slightly more effective, is I am going to bevel the inside of that edge. So here, and this is not a major beveling thing. I do like to do this one with a very textured bevel. So that's what the tool looks like from the side. It's about its angle. It's a fairly wide one. So I'm going to bevel the inside of that line. And as I say, this is not a very heavy bevel. It's just to give it an effect. Of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong in just leaving that border like it is right now. That's not bad at all as an effect. And remember that we're looking at it really close up at the moment. So you're seeing every little imperfection and all that. But if you were to look at it from more of a distance, it really looks good. And as I said when I started, I'm not a perfectionist. So, okay. But to make that type of border much more effective and make it pop, I will use a veiner, and that is the guy that I'm talking about. Now, so far, these tools are very basic craft tools that I'm using, nothing fancy. This guy is, I think if I remember correctly, V407, and I'll show you what it looks like on its own. If you use it full on, it's going to look like that. But of course, I use it here in its intended way, and that is by tilting it to one side. So, what I do, and I'm going to work it from this angle, I place it so that its backside, the curved end of this tool there, is kind of on that edge that I beveled, with the tool just slightly swiveled to the inside. You don't want it 90 degrees. You want it less than, well, 30 degrees or so, I would say, would be better. And I've got it tilted. If I show you from this angle, let's see if I put it there. I'm not using it straight, perpendicular, upright. I'm using it slightly tilted. So only its one tip will do the work. Okay, let's see. Right, that was a bit close. Now, you've got to keep on turning it as the borderline turns. Okay, there we go. Not a whole lot to do, but really effective in getting that borderline to do a 3D effect. Now, I'm going to lift up my phone here and see if we can get a bit of a distance, just so that you get a real effect there. That's what it will look like. That's what the whole thing looks like. Okay, so let me put some little cradle I made, and there you go. Now, there's further than that, there is no end to your imagination as far as what you can do with those borders. Anything will do. What you want to do is make the actual border, and then you also want to overstamp that unneat basket weave edge and line. Okay, so let's see. let's go with well, let's go with another kind of a classic one that people really like, and this is where you bevel the edge again. So let me just first cut the swivel line. And all of this is really quite up to your own choice, personal choice, what type of border you want to go for, etc. There's no one that's correct. Right, and now instead of a textured beveler, I'm going to use a smooth beveler. So this one just looks like that. It's just a smooth beveler. And I'm going to bevel this edge here. Okay. So that's going to leave me with a smooth inside texture there. Again, I'm obliterating the basket weave edge. Okay. Now, well, it's still a patchwork tool. Okay, now what you find many people like is if you now on the inside of that place one of the what is called a border tool. Now you can use a fancy border tool, or you can just simply go for that same here it is, camouflage tool again. So let me do half with each. Well, I'll just do a little bit with a camouflage tool here. So I place it now inside the line, and what this is going to cause to happen is that kind of small little half moon thingies protruding from almost like behind the borderline tool. So that's another choice. Here's a bit of a more fancy borderline tool. I'll show you what this one looks like on its own. It looks like that. Come on its own. There we go. And so if you place that inside, let me start on this side. That can also make for a very nice border. Come on, focus, focus. There you go. So there's a whole lot of possibilities in making a neat border for basket weave. And I think the purpose is just to make sure that your basket weave, the edge of it is well done. Because now if you color that basket weave, that is when it comes into its own. Because especially with this border, with a half moons, if you use this one, then it will really make it look as if this and this is two pieces of leather, and that is very, very successful. Okay, I think there's that covers a whole lot. What I'm going to do is just make a comment on all those tools that I showed in that test video of mine a whole lot. I have been collecting those tools for 38, 39 years, so it's not a big deal. I'll tell you from a few years ago what happened on the internet, and that was, I'll show you again, there they all are. Now, a few years ago, when the internet, before Facebook, there was an internet group that dealt with leatherwork, and so somebody asked the question, how many tools do you have? And within 20 minutes of the question being asked, some old guy answered, oh, I've got like 1,024 tools. So, in other words, it was important to him. He had knew how much, and I don't mind that. He was obviously a collector, and it was important to him. And then another one, oh, no, I've only got 973 tools. And so on it went with everybody with their hundreds of tools. And then, of course, my devilish streak took over, and I asked the question. I said, okay, now of all those tools of yours, per project, on average, how many tools do you take out of your toolbox? And then the answers start coming in about that. And it was unanimous that per project, not much more than 6 or 7 tools came out of the toolbox. And I'll show you. And that's why they mostly in the big sets, or the starter sets. It's that one, the Weiner, is very often used. Then you've got some sort of a beveler, like that. Come on, focus. There we go. Some sort of a beveler. Here's a slightly textured beveler. There's usually, sometimes, the camouflage one that we've just used, that one there, the border one. Very often there's pear shaders, which is just, oh, where's my pear shaders there? There's an example of a pear shader that you simply shape the leather with. Okay, and so there's very basics, and then you might have a few tools, and here and there swap one out or two, but a collection of tools has nothing to do with the quality of leatherwork. Another friend of mine, a true master, was visiting our city one day and made a demo in a class. He gave a class, and we were all very interested in watching him unpacking his toolbox. And he had not this specific one. For example, we were looking at his swivel knives. Not exactly this one, but he had something very similar, the very basic Tandy one. And it was very nicely covered. The barrel was covered with beads and all that, but there was nothing fancy about the blade and everything. It was a basic. And he showed us how the quality of his work is not dependent on the price you paid for the tool or how expensive or exclusive the tool is at all. Similarly, when he did floral carving, Sheridan-style carving, we all thought, oh, these are going to be very fancy tools, bevelers and stuff, and it wasn't. It was really just the basics, making a lot of sense. I might talk about that a bit later on, but the main point I want to make is that you can do awesome work just with very basic tools. I mean, if you look at how very effective that border is, and it works with any basket weave, and then camouflage it. It's that simple. So let me show you. That's the how I've used it in a bag I'm currently making. So there we go. Oh, okay. There we go. That's what it looks like. Very effective. And there. Okay, so I will probably post this in a few places, and then as far as I can, I will answer a few questions in the comments and so on. And yeah, if you have requests or anything that you want to look at, and if I can at all help, I will do so. The main thing is that you have fun with leatherwork. It's all about fun. If you don't have fun with it, I'm not interested. Okay, take care and all of the best. I am now going to have a very good lunch. I don't know if the guys from Europe are still there. I saw Hans Kimmel. Lekker aand, nee, seker dag by jou, Hans. So, hoop jy het 'n goeie dag voor jou en ek hoop jy geniet jou leerwerk. Dankie, bye bye.